What's up, comrades? Elf here, and welcome to another video. Today, I kind of wanted to talk about a different subject. This kind of showed up on my feed on Twitter, and I kind of felt the need to discuss it because, for those of you who are unaware, I'm a pretty big fan of Fire Emblem. I'm not the biggest fan, because I haven't played every single game, but I do love the franchise, and it has, in recent years, truly become a much bigger part of Nintendo's family. It has grown in popularity. It has become more mainstream now than it has ever been in the past. And I think with that mainstream popularity that it is now acquired, we're getting, more divisions in the fan base and the community. We're also, especially due to the fact that the two games that have sold the most are Fire Emblem Awakening and Fire Emblem Fates. Now, I like Awakening, not a big fan of Fates, but I do really like Awakening. It's the only part of it that I am annoyed by is how, I guess its overpopularity has kind of tainted the rest of the franchise in a weird way. It's not like it's overtly negative, but at the same time, it's kind of like an annoyance or a hindrance to the franchise because we don't want the games to become stale, and we don't want them to piggyback off the same type of success that Awakening has had. That's kind of what the problem with Fates is. It piggybacks off of a lot of the ideas that Awakening popularized, and it didn't go over well for Fates. So that's kind of the big deal that I have with those two games. And there's so many other games in the franchise, and I mean, to be quite honest, I would play every single one of them if some of them weren't incredibly expensive to purchase. I'm looking at you, Path of Radiance. Yeah, you, over there, in the corner. I hate you. Anyway, this little thing on Twitter that I found was a post that was shared, and it had to do with some not so kind things to say about the Fire Emblem franchise. And by that I mean that we have, it would seem as though the SJW type crowd has kind of irked their way in here, and they kind of did when Fates came out. There was some controversy involving that, and now I find this post, and I felt the need to talk about it because I love Fire Emblem, and I feel like this post is, woefully inaccurate to what the fan base is. Well, not woefully inaccurate. Let me rephrase. It's not fair to paint the entire community in the same broad strokes as this person has, and it just feels a bit inappropriate to do. So as you can see on your screen, I am sharing the post that I left about playing the game of virtue signaling and whatnot. Please don't do that. It never goes over well, especially when it comes to fictional characters. And this person actually intentionally tried to get the Fire Emblem fan base to communicate. It would seem as though this person wanted attention for their, well, I'll be honest, not so great art. I would say that this is pretty subpar art most of the time. But, that's just a personal opinion. I'm not a fan of this art style. I think it's incredibly lazy. But they wanted the Fire Emblem community to respond, or the Fire Emblem fan base, and I am one member of the fan base. I don't speak for everybody, obviously, but I think that I can at least give my thoughts on these wonderful pictures that you've decided to share with everybody. So, let's go over each and every one of them, shall we? Because I'm sure this will be a rip-roaring good time. And the first one, I'm assuming, is supposed to be Lynn, or at least I hope that's Lynn, considering that this person has some majorly huge biceps. I'm going to try and avoid complaining about the art as much as I possibly can, but that might be hard for me to do. But, okay, the entire little game that this person is playing, it's the same thing about, you know that t-shirt that says, "Ask me about my feminist agenda"? You know, that's a pretty popular meme that everybody likes throwing around. They used it in, well, of all things, Marvel. They decided to use that on Mockingbird's comic book and put it on a t-shirt and put it on a cover. And that was fun, wasn't it? That didn't do terribly. But anyway, as you can see on the screen, it says, "Not your waifu." I would like to point out and say, Lynn is a very popular character, and a lot of fans really like her. Some of them like her in more ways than one. Some are attracted to her. Of course, she was an attractive character. It's completely understandable to say, hey, you know, I like her enough to call her my waifu. The thing is that normally when somebody, nowadays, at least when I make the comment or joke about a waifu and whatnot, I'm doing it ironically. I'm doing it as a joke. I'm not serious about it because they're fictional characters. These characters do not have agency, they cannot defend themselves, and nor should they. In Fire Emblem, you can do whatever you want to any characters that you want. And let me break it down, because obviously this person isn't going to explain this to you, but I will, because I'm an asshole that way. So, in Fire Emblem, you are put in charge of a giant army. Every single army is comprised of several different characters and classes. Some are better than others. Some are very attractive. Some are really cool characters. And the main objective is to make sure that all your units survive any form of combat in a strategy setting. So, there are several different variables to consider when making a team for a battle, right? I feel like I'm going to be dragging this video on just by explaining this, but I'll try and summarize as much as I can. In these games, you can pair characters up so that they get stat bonuses, and in some of the games, they can get married if they are of the proper sexual orientation, I guess you could say, or whatever the case may be. They can get married, and they can have kids. And then also, another thing you can do is, if you're playing on a classic version, or playing classic mode on most Fire Emblem games, if a unit dies, they stay dead. So that means that if you had a character that you really liked, or a character that you truly detested, if they die, they stay dead. Unless you reset the game, or you're playing on casual mode. The other thing that a lot of these games have, which sometimes is a problem, is they have an abundance of characters. Some are good, stat-wise, and some are bad, stat-wise. So, what you're normally left with is you can only have so many units on a field at any given time, and on older games you have to dedicate your time to train them properly. So, you normally pick and choose your favorites, and you just use your favorites. It's basically what I'm getting at. That's the summarized version. So, you can do whatever you want to these characters. You can pair them with anyone you want. You can have them fight any way that you want. There is no middle ground. But since I'm dragging this particular part of the segment too long, I'm going to move on and discuss the other pieces of art. This next one, I'm assuming is supposed to be Lucina. It certainly doesn't look anything like Lucina, except for maybe the hairstyle. And it says, "I didn't travel back in time to save the world just to be over-sexualized and infantilized." Personally, I didn't think of Lucina as an overtly sexualized character. Now, you could always find fan art of just about anything that would make her overly sexualized, or any character overly sexualized, male and female. But, I don't normally look at Lucina this way. You should not just make these types of arguments for characters that do not have any particular rights in the sense of them being real. They are fictional, so you can kind of pick and choose what you want. Me, personally, I'm normally a pretty nice individual when it comes to these games. I look at the characters more on a character basis, moreover than their assets in whatever form of, you know, sexiness that you want to discuss. So I mainly focus more on that. But I'm going to move on. We now have a picture with Erica and Micaiah, both of which are... Actually, I kind of found these just mildly amusing because these are funny. Please stop shipping me with my brother. I've played Sacred Stones. I'm not finished with it, obviously, but I have played it, and I can safely say that there is... I wouldn't say that there's sexual tension, but they're twins, and it's kind of implied every once in a while. I don't know how serious it is, but... I mean, I wouldn't ship her with her brother, obviously, because I'm not that type of person. I'd rather her hang out with Seth more. But, you know, people are going to make fan fictions about anything. They're going to do what they want. You can't tell people what they can and cannot do in a fandom. Micaiah's, I'm not sure I fully understand or grasp. I'll be honest with you. It says, don't ship me with the boy I raised. A support ending is fucked up. I have no idea what this is entailing. I have not played enough of Radiant Dawn to know. That's just my opinion on that. I don't know. And then we have one of Celica saying women aren't for you to play with and objectify. If we were talking about actual women, we're talking about real life flesh and blood, I would agree with this statement. But if we're talking about fictional characters, that's in a different territory. You can objectify fictional characters. You can do whatever you want to a fictional character. If you create a fictional character, you can probably kill a fictional character or do other horrible things to them in a fictional setting. We're talking about fictional characters. I want to point this out. We're talking about fictional goddamn characters. Some of these characters are very good characters, but they're still fiction. They're not real. Stop trying to treat them like a real person. There's a big difference between a real person and a character in a video game, or in a comic, or in a film. There's a big difference. Now, these characters can have significant meaning to individuals and people, obviously. I've had characters that I've looked to for inspiration or that meant something special to me, but they're still fictional. They're never going to replace a real live human being. In my eyes, or it should be in anyone's eyes. If you have friends or family or loved ones, they are going to trump any actual form of fictional character. The fictional characters can still mean something to you. They certainly do for me. But they aren't the be-all, end-all of, you know, companionship. A digital person is never going to be the same as being in a room with another human being. That's just how it is. And there was also another one about a handy tip if you're planning on replying to this. Okay, so this is the part that I actually found incredibly irritating. It's like, you want people to comment on this, obviously, because you're trying to at the Fire Emblem community. You're trying to get people to talk about this. Either you're starved for attention, or you're trying to play a victim card in the future. I'm not sure what your game plan is. I can't be sure I can tell definitively one way or another, but don't say stupid shit like if someone is planning on replying. And with this picture, I believe it was supposed to be Robin. I didn't screen cap it properly, but it says, planning to comment on their skin tone, save time, don't. You opened the floodgates. You made this a public post. People can ridicule and criticize you as much as they desire. Me, I'm trying to just criticize you. I'm trying to be as fair as I possibly can be. I don't agree with these types of statements or these things, but at the same time, you are free to your opinion. But don't expect kind words from people when clearly your objective is to piss them off. Now, on the thread, there was a few comments that I kind of wanted to go over a bit. So let's kind of discuss them a bit, because someone points out that there's an alarming amount of daddy jokes regarding characters like Ike and Hector. As someone who has run a kawaii aesthetic type blog and has problems with I actually cannot even read this. I think I can read this comment though. Just saying it makes no sense to say don't sexualize women characters without saying the same for the characters, male characters basically. Just the exact opposite of equality. Like Crom, Robin, Hector, Reinhardt all get this commonly. And this is true because the female characters in Fire Emblem are attractive for the most part. And so are the male characters. Especially characters like Ike, or Crom, or Robin, or Hector, or Reinhardt. If you've seen art of these characters, you'll know that there are going to be loins aplenty of women who will be very, very attracted to some of these gentlemen, even though they're fictional characters. So it doesn't mean they can't be hot guys. I'm just saying, this is a true statement. I believe that Fire Emblem has a fair amount of equality. We get sexy female characters and sexy male characters. What more could you possibly want? So the thing with SJWs, it's only fair if it's only done to one and not to the other. It's completely different. It's completely unfair to objectify women, but it's completely okay to objectify, male characters. That's okay. That's fine. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. That's the logic that we're all playing with here today, guys. This is the deck we're using. And the poster continues, I am speaking specifically for women because while I agree there are things like that happening with the men in Fire Emblem, and probably to a larger degree than this person will freely admit, it is impossible to deny that there's a hell of a lot more misogyny in the game and in the fan base. I have yet to see it. Do you have evidence? Proof? What, a bunch of guys go gaga over a cute girl? It's not misogyny. It's just... Oh, wait, no. I'm mistaken. I need to understand that my male gaze is evil. Is that what you're going to say? Are you going to say that the male gaze is a horrible thing? That we can't like beautiful women? If that's what you're going for, if that's your argument, you're going to lose that one. Because people are attracted to whatever tickles their fancy. I almost said funny, but whatever tickles their fancy. And in the fan base, originally it was actually just going to be the first drawing of Lynn, because I'm sick and tired of seeing adult men insult how I draw women. Well, I mean, you don't know if they're all just men that are insulting you. Are you sure about that? There could be women that maybe don't find your art appealing. That's a possibility, anyway. Yes, I'm a man, and I don't find your art very appealing. Maybe I should ask some of my lady friends if they find this art appealing. Just out of curiosity, maybe I'll experiment with that and see what they have to say. And then looking at their Twitters, and it's... Okay, so it's porn of a girl who is, in the original game, 15 and barely even legal. Okay. Now, people are going to do what they're going to do. This isn't... They're not harming any actual 15-year-olds. Do I think that it's a bit questionable? Sure. But it's just how Japan is. Legal age in Japan is different than what it is in the States. Yeah, of course you point out that this is in localization. And the person says that they created these images because they were tired of misogyny and incest. Okay. Well, You claim that the misogyny is from men in the fan base and in the community. From what I have seen, I don't know if I agree with that. I would need some hard evidence. You need to prove this without a shadow of a doubt. Are men being ironic when they post pictures like this? I don't know. Now, if some of these men are, going Rule 34 on some of this stuff, that's their prerogative, not yours. They can do whatever they want. They do have free will, as do you. You have to, if you're that type of person, you have to proactively seek out that type of stuff. Just pointing that out. You had to proactively look for it. Just pointing that out. And the incest thing, sometimes that happens in these games. Of course, keep in mind that this is a fantasy setting. It's made by Japanese people who, when it comes to like sexual taboos and whatnot, they don't seem to care. In other countries, that might be a different story, obviously, but in Japan, they don't seem to care nearly as much about. They seem to not really care. They'll do whatever the hell they want, and they get a kick out of it, I guess. I don't know. As for incest between characters, it's a weird thing, but it happens. It's in the story mode. What do you want the fan base to do? If you have a complaint about this, it should be with Nintendo, not with the fan base. It sounds like you have a problem with the fan base when it feels like you maybe should have a problem with the company, with Intelligent Systems, because they're the ones who write the dialogue in some of these games. I'm just saying, maybe your frustration and anger is pointed in the wrong direction. I'm not sure, but that's just my opinion. But let's move on. This is going to be a long video, apparently, so I'm going to keep on going, though. Fair criticism. I see Camilla painted in this light several times, but honestly, it's not her that's the problem. Are you sure? This isn't actually the creator, it's someone commenting on it. So people thinking large cleavage is a free pass. Camilla has proven that she's okay with more revealing clothing, and there are even scenes where her Niels and Laszlo and Keaton all nearly get an axe to the face for being creepy about it. Okay, you're gonna be bringing up Camilla, a character who is designed in a fairly fan-servicey fashion, right? Like other characters in the past that have been drawn in somewhat of a very provocative manner, or at the very least a somewhat provocative manner. This person's going to make that comment. It's a little weird. I mean, it's obvious that she's there for fan service. Fire Emblem Fates was some of the most blatant fan service I'd ever seen in Fire Emblem, and they've had some fan service in the past, don't get me wrong, but this was kind of slapping you in the face in very obvious fan service. This has been going on in the series for a long time, and it's something that that animes and video games do all the time. Whether or not you tolerate it is entirely up to you. You give Prince Corrin the spy and leave the girls to tits and asses and lolly appeal. Fates is a bad game when it comes to story and character development. I don't think anybody would entirely disagree with you except for those who actually like the game. This is giving me a headache. There's this one person who left a comment. I kind of liked him. And this person points out very clearly, women aren't there for you to play with and objectify. Fictional characters are. That's literally the entire point of creating fan work. And this person makes a very valid point. Yes, like I said earlier, they're fictional. It's the entire point of creating fan work in the first place. It allows you to expand and create and do whatever you want. And the creator says, I think you're missing the entire point of what I'm saying. And the response is quite golden. Certainly possible. It doesn't make any sense to me. My DMs are open if you want to talk. Sounds like a person who's willing to discuss things. And you blocked him. You blocked this person. Why? He was willing to have a discussion with you, wasn't he? It seems a bit odd for you to just, not respond back. I don't understand people sometimes. But it would seem as though, yeah, this type of stuff always bugs me, because it's people trying to say what you can and cannot do in a fan base when you have free will to do whatever you want. It's a disturbing precedent that we live in, huh? When people can't enjoy the things that they want to enjoy. If you have a problem with something either in the community, in a video game franchise, or with the fan base, that's entirely on you. I could go on for quite a long time discussing problems that I have with Fire Emblem. I could do that all day. But my problems do not involve making political statements. And thankfully for this franchise, I don't have to hear the argument of Fire Emblem has always been political, because that argument would be kind of stupid and nonsensical, considering that these are fantasy worlds and are not real. They're fantasy and are monarchies most of the time. So we can't try and interject U.S. politics into this. That would be a completely idiotic argument to make. But I think that does it. I've gone on for quite a long time. I don't know how structured this is, but I hope you all enjoyed. Please, as always, do not forget to leave me a like, shoot me a comment, subscribe if you're new, and hit notifications. I'd greatly appreciate it. But I will also preface this. Don't send hate to this individual. You don't need to do that, obviously. I don't hate the person. I just disagree with their viewpoint. That's my big beef. Don't send hate over to these individuals or people. If you want to have a civil conversation with them, please feel free to do so. Just do not harass or say or be overtly rude. Of course, I can't control you. You can do whatever you want. That's entirely up to you. I can't say that I didn't try and be polite. But as always, do not forget to raise your nerd flags high, and I will see you next time. Nightwolf is out.